All right, so we left it off where we actually created a comment that's related to the post directly by using a foreign key. So what we need to do now is change our foreign key into a generic foreign key. So going into the documentation here, you can just Google generic relations Django or generic foreign keys Django, and this will be where you'll find it. So I'm going to go ahead and import these couple things here, and we're going to jump into our comment model, import these things right after conf, and we're going to add these three new fields here, and it's going to be comment all of these right here. So right underneath post, this is what we're doing here. And content object, we are going to just keep it as is. We'll keep all of these things as is. So now if I save it, basically these three items right here are going to take place of this one single post item. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out that post item, and we're going to do python manage.py, make migrations. This is going to give me this one-off value, right? So mainly because I changed the models, so the database is going to be broken if I don't do something here. So I'm going to go ahead and quit. And instead of actually going in here and changing everything, I'm going to come into my initial migrations, and I'm going to delete the migrations file there. And we're going to go into our settings, and I'm going to comment out comments, and we'll do python manage.py, make migrations again. Nothing happened. Bring back comments and do make migrations one more time, and then python manage.py migrate, and now it migrated the app for us. So we just did some changes, and it just changed what was in the database originally, and it made a new initial migration for us. So technically, if we were going to do comments, this is how we'd want to do it first, not actually have the posts. But I just wanted to show you how it would be done if you did it that way. So if we do python manage.py run server, and we go into our database here, into the admin, and then comments, we get no such column as content type ID. So I'm going to do python manage.py migrate comments, and it's saying no migrations to actually apply. And this has to do everything with how the database currently is. Now, you might have a lot of issues with this because if you don't know SQL or the SQL commands, whether it's SQLite, MySQL, or the Postgres SQL, or any of the database languages, this stuff can actually cause a big problem for you down the line. So that's why it's really important to test all these things out on your local database. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm actually going to delete this, by renaming it. So I'm just going to rename it to db.2. And we're going to change it just like that. And then I'll do python manage.py, make migrations, and then python manage.py, migrate. And this created all brand new stuff. So I basically just deleted everything. So I have to do python manage.py, create super user, and I'm going to use CFE, and then the password learn code. And we'll run the server again. And now we're going to be starting fresh, like completely fresh with posts and everything. So I'm going to make a new post, and I'll say new post, new slug, and we're going to leave out the image, content here. And again, it's markdown content, so we can leave it as markdown. And I'm going to go ahead and publish it today. And then I'll just say item 1 and 2. Okay. So let's go ahead and save that, and we're going to look at our posts again. And there we go. So we got our new post here, and it's actually showing up. Good. And now if we go into our comments area and go ahead and add a new comment, what we see now is content type. Notice that there's all these different models in here. So I have post, that's the post model, that's the comment model, and so on. So we can actually use post and then object ID of 1, and here's a comment. And we hit save. We just now created this brand new comment that's going to be related to this particular post. So in order for us to actually grab that post, that actual comment, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to leave that out for now, but we actually just created that brand new comment. So now what we need to do is actually add the generic foreign key to our content area, and that's something we'll do in the next one. Now, the thing with the database, now you might be wondering, well, how do I go about doing this without actually deleting the database or renaming it as we did? What you could do if that was the case in your models, if you ever see where it's like, oh, well, it can't be null or there's a missing column or something like that, there's another way you can do it, which I'm going to show you real briefly. If you don't care about doing this, you can skip this part and just go to the next one because we will start with this one and the next one anyway. What you could do then is, let's say, for instance, this post model is still in there. You would just say null equals to true. That way it can be null in the database. And you can also add null equals to true on your other one. So what that means is then when you run migrate, that these columns will be added into your database and they will allow it to be blank, which you can change later, but every existing column or every existing item in there needs to know whether it can be null or not. So if that doesn't fully make sense, please let us know, because we do want to make sure that you understand this concept of how the database actually works. It can be a little bit tricky, but playing around with these things and trying to break it is really how you're going to learn how all that stuff works. So what we just did, the process of what we just did by first adding the post and then adding these generic keys, you should definitely try and do that yourself too if this is really just not making sense. But the main part here is if a field is not in the database and we do not have null being true on it, then we have to set a default value for these new fields. We've seen it with user as well. So the user has a default value and it's going to select that user by default when it is actually adding a new instance into the database. Okay, so hopefully you don't have any questions on that, but if you do, let us know. Otherwise, let's move on to the next one and finish up these generic foreign keys.